Good morning, everybody. Okay, let's try it once again. Good morning, everybody. Yes, that sounds better. It's a great pleasure and a matter of great pride and a joy for me to be here at Infocom 2015. Many thanks to the team at ABP, but most specifically to Mr. Mahapatra, because he was extremely keen that I come here, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to come here and speak to this August gathering here this morning. As we gather here today, we are talking about extremely pertinent issues. We're talking about issues that are very relevant, that are pressing upon the needs of the society, that are important for us, not just as an individual, not just as an organization, but extremely important from the social structure that we have created and for the country that we want to build and live in. So that's why I think I must thank you for organizing such an initiative here in Calcutta. And you've taken this initiative across the country. I remember the one that you did in Delhi. That was also brilliantly well attended and, extremely thought-provoking. So thanks to the entire team at ABP for doing this. When we come together here, one issue that we are talking about this morning is entrepreneurship. And that's a very important question, not just because, we would like to see many more entrepreneurs in the country, but because there's a documented evidence, there's a historical data that proves that the level of entrepreneurship in a country, not just the success of entrepreneurship, I'll come to that later, but the very veracity of entrepreneurship, the intent and the extent of creating entrepreneurs in a country is directly related to the prosperity of that country. If you look at new firm formation, new company formation, and that's one of the criteria of ease of doing business that the world monitors, the number of firms created and the number of days taken to create a new company, a new enterprise, is directly proportional to the rate of growth that our country has witnessed over the centuries. It's almost over 100 years of data set that this correlation has been found to be true. Now, whether it's just a correlation or also a causation, that's a matter of analysis, that's a matter of debate, that's a matter of inquiry. I would not say that, it is really causality as well, but yes, because, entrepreneurship works on a broad model, broad theory of let 1,000 flowers bloom. And when you throw away 1,000 seeds, and every seed actually has the potential to be a forest. There's a potent forest in every seed that we throw away. So, if just going by the numbers and probability game, if you throw away too many and enough, you are sure that you will create a couple of forests. Now, when you talk about entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship cannot be without any context. Entrepreneurship will have to be in a particular context within the country, within the state, within an economy, or wherever we think it's important. Now, I'm not sure whether my mic is still working or not. Can you still hear me? Yeah, it's loud and clear. Yeah, okay, good. Allows me to move around. So when we talk about, an entrepreneurship at any given level, we must think about what really entrepreneurship means. We must think about how entrepreneurship will be different in, firstly to start with the United States versus Canada versus UK and in India. Is it going to be the same metrics? Can we look at the same variables? Can we look, is it a universal theory like genomes or chemistry or physics? Or is it going to be very culture specific? Is it going to be very context specific? Is it going to be very upbringing specific, if I may add to that? And the more varied an upbringing, a more varied a context, a more diverse a set of exposures and experiences that an individual have, will that person be better at creating entrepreneurship? Will he be a better entrepreneur? Why not? I mean, if you have an ability to synthesize and integrate multiple aspects of entrepreneurship, multiple experiences, multiple exposures that you've had throughout your life, you would probably be a better entrepreneurship. You'll be better at entrepreneurship, isn't it? Because you're able to bring together stimuli that are from different contexts. That's an important argument. But let me flip this argument on its head. And let me say, the more focused you are, the deeper you are,
The more knowledgeable you are about a particular initiative, about a particular theory, about a particular context, about a particular subject, about a particular department, about a particular product, about a particular market space, the better you will be at entrepreneurship. Because as you go deeper, you are able to pinpoint the missing links, the variables where there are gaps in the structure. And then your mind says, if I can bridge point A and point B, I see a lot of value in A and B, but there's no connections there. They're not talking to each other. If I can only build a bridge from A to B, it will be an extremely important and value addition process. Ultimately, what do entrepreneurs do? Entrepreneurs, do they create new worlds? Yes, they do. Do they improve the world? Yes, they do. Do they have incremental innovations? Yes, they do. Do they have disruptive innovations? Yes, they do. And range of activities, all of that, to be honest with you. So, if we are able to go deep, and if we are able to bridge those gaps and identify those points, then I think we can be extremely good at entrepreneurship. Let me pick up the example, of the current context where we are sitting, the ABP. The Amrit Bazar Patrika is about a 93-year-old organization today. I'm sorry, the Anand Bazar Patrika is about 93 years old today. And which is like the great-great-grandfather. And they have a new baby, which is 3 years old. How did they straddle that journey? How did they traverse that variability in the context? That is probably because, to my mind, and this could be flawed analysis, I don't claim any expertise on the subject of ABP because I'm not really in-depth analysis I've not done, but on the broad spectrum of it, what they were able to do successfully is they were able to look at the product market space offering. They were able to create what I would argue was a strategic map, and they said, there's a product here, there's a product there on the map, there's a product here, but this product space is free. So can we have a product in that space? And they were able to straddle that space. And why did they have that sense? Why did they have that understanding? Why? Because they were active players in that space. They were active players in that field. They had in-depth knowledge of their market. They had in-depth knowledge of their capabilities. They had in-depth knowledge of what the capacities they were there and what market size they might be able to create as they go forward. And thus, the birth of a new product, which is about 3 years old now, especially targeted at a regional language, which has a huge readership, a huge market base, extremely educated people, very aware of their context, very aware of their cultures, and maybe extremely proud of the culture and the heritage that this great state Bengal brings together. The history that it brings together. So that is an example of, how somebody who has depth knowledge is able to create entrepreneurs and create entrepreneurship. We could call it corporate entrepreneurship. Yes, why not? We could call it, serial entrepreneurship if it comes from a person who's done it one after the other. But if you flip it and turn the argument on its head, you can say, think about, a news aggregator like news.com. Or think about, a Google getting into news. No space, no understanding of the market, no understanding of the dynamics, no understanding of the capabilities and the capacities that are required to create news, to create content, to create material which will be worth reading and then that somebody will be happy to pay for. Eventually, either in form of advertising, either in form of content sponsorship, or in form of just buying for the reading pleasure or the reading need of that. A different model altogether. Now, which is a better way of creating entrepreneurs? Is the Google model or, let's say the news.com model or the housing.com model or the Myntra or the, the Flipkart? Are these models better than the ABPs of the world, the Stars and the Tatas and the Birlas of the world? The right answer is yes, and the right answer is no. So what we are saying, what we are really saying about entrepreneurship, What am I really doing getting up on the stage and talking to this august gathering and saying it's yes and it's no? Am I trying to fool all of you? Am I trying to kid you? Am I taking you for a ride? And the clear answer is no. A very genuine answer to which I'm extremely convinced is no. What I'm telling you is the absolute truth. Why I'm telling you it is a truth is because there is no rules when it comes to entrepreneurship. That's something which you say, aha, that makes sense. So what does that mean? When you say there are no rules, does it mean there are no rules? No. Life is full of rules, right? We all observe rules. And even, let me say something extremely relevant here that is close to my heart. If you have to break a rule, you must know what the rule is. And to be in a position to break that rule, you have to be ahead, at least on the learning curve of that rule. You don't have to be ahead of that rule. Please understand the subtleties that I'm trying to point out here. Please understand the differences that I'm trying to bring out here. You don't have to be ahead on that particular rule per se. But you have to be ahead on the learning curve of that rule. For example, if you wanted to change a rule in cricket, let me say, if you are Abhishek Mishra and you say this rule in cricket doesn't work, people will tell you, you know what, get lost. What do you know about cricket? How can you comment on cricket? I mean, only by looking at you we can tell you that you have not played a lot of cricket, right? But if a Sachin Tendulkar gets up and says this rule in cricket is problematic and we need to change that rule, you all are going to stand up and say, oh, Sachin is saying, this guy must be right, because he knows what he's saying. So to break a rule, to change a rule, you have to be ahead of that rule on that learning curve. So your understanding, your analysis, your perception of that rule and people's perception of your ability. Now that is again a very relevant point, because what that gives you is it gives you validity. It gives you sufficient as a process. People say that yes, what he's saying makes sense. So if you have that capability, then you can get up and change that rule and the world will listen to you only because you are more capable, you have a better capacity, you have a better processing power, you have a better understanding, which people know that you have a better understanding. And it's important that they know that, right? Because people operate in, I would say, 4 quadrants, if we can use that analysis. One is, I know that I don't know. The other is, I don't know I know. And the fourth is, I don't know. Right? So if you are operating from a perspective where people know that you know, or I know that I know, it's easier to be received on that ground. If I say today something on, changing industrial policy in Uttar Pradesh, people will have a good ear to say that, okay, this guy is a minister in the government, he can change that. So you will probably listen to me better than if I said that let's change the rules of cricket. Or let's change the rules of kabaddi, in which I don't know how many players really play. Agreed? We all on the same page there? Yeah? Let me give you another argument on that story. I want to change cricket, but what I start by doing, and that is a huge opportunity for all of us here on entrepreneurship. Great opportunities in entrepreneurship reside in the value chain. One, and secondly, in the business models that we have at the moment. Now, business model innovation, if I can call it, or business model entrepreneurship, if I can call it by that extension, is a great source of opportunity for all of us today to disrupt that model or to create new models. And when I took the example of cricket, and when I'm coming to business model changes, you can easily imagine where I'm going. What do you think is the entrepreneurship idea in my mind that I want to come to? What did they change in the business model of cricket? What did they do different in which you were not required to know anything about cricket? Create? Anybody? Create IPL. Absolutely. It's a business model innovation. And then Abhishek Mishra is extremely relevant to create that, to understand that. So somebody who created that model, let's not go to that name. The names are not important in what I am saying. I could talk about Bill Gates, or I could talk about, Mark Zuckerberg, or, the Google guys, or somebody. That's not important. I'm not going to do that. I want to talk about the fundamental concepts. I want to talk about theories, and the beauty of a theory is nothing is more practical than a theory. That's the best part of a theory. It applies to all. It applies every time. So, the person who created that model and started IPL as a business model didn't know anything about cricket, and he didn't have to know anything about cricket. So if I and you have to think about it, we have a platform where we can think about what we need to do is we need to start looking at business models, and we need to start disrupting those models. We need to start creating new business models. That's a huge source of innovation. That's a huge source of entrepreneurship. You can do that. If somebody is doing it for cricket, you can do it for baseball. You can do it for basketball. You can do it for, anything. Let's say somebody is doing it, sail across the world. Rolex sponsors sailing across the world every year. Huge race, people gather together, this race and sail across the world. Brilliant idea, but it takes a couple of days and so much money that only probably a Rolex can do that. But what the Italians did, somebody was smart enough, and somebody got together and again got Rolex to sponsor that, and Ferretti as the yacht maker in Italy to sponsor that. They said, you know what, we don't want to go to the world and sail across the world. It takes too much time. It's difficult to retain people's attention. What we'll do is we'll start a sailing race on the Lake Como. And the Lake Como race event became one of the biggest socialite events in Europe today. People from across Europe, across the world, will come to Lake Como, get together in their fancy dresses. So it's a huge opportunity for sales for Louis Vuittons and the Gucci's and the Tom Fords of the world. They'll get together and they will sail, the results of which are out in 3 hours. And they will have a lovely celebration and then 3 days of partying after that. Every team that participates will have its own stall and its own party. And so a new business model gets created. You could do that too. Anything else that you come across. Kabaddi, baseball, ice ring, skating, anything in sports category or news making category. Can you think about disrupting the ABP model at the moment? I can think about it. I'm not going to tell you here because they are sponsoring my visit, so I'm not going to say that. But if you have what it takes to disrupt business model, within 5 years, you can make a Harvard Business School redundant. You can put Microsoft out of business, and people are actually trying to put Microsoft out of business for the last 10, 15 years, and I think they're going to take only about 4 or 5 years more if Microsoft continues to do the way it is doing at the moment. If it doesn't change, if it doesn't come up with a strategic response to the process of disruption that it is facing, Microsoft will be disrupted in the next 4 to 5 years. Because people are challenging the very basis of proprietary, ownership-driven software and hardware for which you have to pay a price. The whole idea of open source, which is maturing enough, the OpenOffice.org model, which is maturing enough to a level where people will start taking that, they will start internalizing it. That's another source of disruption or entrepreneurship or innovation. Now, please allow me this leverage, this freedom, this flexibility to use the word innovation and entrepreneurship interchangeably because many times, more often than not, innovations are the source of creating entrepreneurship. New innovations create markets for either sustaining entrepreneurships or creating new entrepreneurship models. So please allow me that luxury of using those words interchangeably. Now, if you look at any industry for that matter, any industry, and you plot on the y-axis, you take performance, measured in whatever, measured in millions of production per unit of time, x-axis is time. You process, you take speed over time, You take gasoline output, or consumption productivity over time. You take whatever variable you think suits your particular industry or the industry that is in your heart and your mind, right? The ability of an athlete to run or to swim per minute, per second, so on and so forth. The ability of your fibers to withstand pressures per unit of time, per unit of pressure, per unit of force. Whatever. So if you take on the x-axis time and you take a dependent variable on the y-axis and you draw a trajectory, more often than not, you will find an S-curve, which is a broad S-curve like this, on the growth of any industry for that matter. Any industry, you'll find that, and that is what we like to call technological S-curves. Now, a great opportunity for entrepreneurship comes when you are able to disrupt the technology S-curve that the industry is following at the moment. Let me give you an example. And you can disrupt it or you can enhance it. But what you are effectively trying to do is to take that S-curve and shift it from the present S-curve to a different S-curve that you can dominate as a company, as an organization. That's the idea. When you look at, now, how do you do that? Let me take any example that you want to take. If you can give me an industry, I can show you the beauty of theory, how it works. Or if you allow me, then I will take an example. Yeah? Any choices? No? Okay, let me take an example. Sorry? Steel? Okay. Let's take steel for that matter. Now, if steel is giving you a particular level of tensile strength over a factor of cost per unit of time. Suppose you take a particular steel quality which is giving you a tensile strength. I'm just, assuming numbers here and variables here as well. But if it gives you a tensile strength to resist a force of, let's say, impact of 100 kilometers per hour, right? And that momentum, mass into acceleration. And if you are able to create a steel which actually does, instead of 100, 150, through a process of substitution, through a process of replacement, then the entire industry will shift from 100, it will leave the 100 product and it will go to 150 product. That is what I like to call sustaining entrepreneurship, incremental innovation. But think about somebody who says, you know what, to create that 100, a kilometer per hour impact resistant steel, I need to put up a plant which is going to cost me 6,000 crore rupees. Has to be somewhere close to a river, close to an iron ore site, and involve a lot of coal, coking coal. Oh, that's a problem. If I want to do it in Delhi, if I want to do it in Calcutta, if I want to do it in Lucknow, do we have it? No, we don't have it. Then I say, you know what, if I can take scrap steel from somebody, I can still create a steel bar which is good enough for 40 kilometers per hour impact. And my analysis tells me that at the moment, there could be two options to that product category, product space offering. First, there's a huge market for 40 kilometers per hour impact resistant category because you know what? Houses don't really need a lot of that 100 kilometer per hour category. So whatever steel I make will be used in the housing market. Or there is no industry actually which is valuing that 40 kilometer impact resistant steel today. What that gives you is a beautiful opportunity. Huge opportunity. And that is to create a new industry. To create a strategic hole, if I can use that word, on the strategic map that the industry is following at the moment. And all managers, all CEOs, all top management, everybody is driving actively, doggedly, pursuantly on filling that space and making their pies larger and larger. But what you are doing in a very smart way is that you are disrupting that from below. And what you do, you say, you know what, I'm going to provide steel for making handphones or for making laptop bodies, which are good enough if I drop them from this height. They're good enough. Look at what Panasonic did with Toughbook. That's exactly what they did with Toughbooks. They said it's a good quality steel. It's not rocket science. And we created this steel. It's very cheap to produce. It can be produced from scrap. And it can be produced, very easily here, meeting the environmental standards. And it can provide, my handbook, my laptop, if I drop it from a height of, 5 feet, it's not going to do anything to that because it's galvanized steel or whatever steel it is. Or for handsets. We're going to use handsets to create that. We're going to use that steel which is refined, not that impact resistant, but strong enough for watches, for frames, for making pens, for making other gadgets. So you're creating a new industry altogether, and two things will happen when you do that. First, you will create a new industry for yourself, in which nobody is interested. You are not on the radar of the competition. No competitor is feeling threatened because, they were all looking at from going to 100 to 105 to 107 to 110. So they're working on a different trajectory. And you suddenly come up and say, I have a product which is 40. Is anybody threatened by your product? Nobody. So you get a free run to create your own market, and you can start using that steel for medical equipment, for stainless steel grade in medical, cutting and whatever they use, and multiple of uses, and companies have actually effectively done that already in the steel industry. You see the argument? You see the point? You give me any industry, and without knowing the industry, I will give you an example and I will prove that, because that's the beauty of theory. As I said, it will always work. I don't want to use the adjective here, but I feel very sad for managers and CEOs and, brilliant boys and girls who argue that this is theoretical and it is not practical. Come on, guys. What is theory? Theory is an encapsulation of practice. The very idea of creating a theory, the process of deriving at a theory, is that you observe lots of practicalities in life and you document it at a base level where it will always work, where you can pinpoint the exceptions. You can say, theory ABC, its exceptions are 1, 2, 3. That's it. Other than that, it will work. So that's again something which is important to my mind, and that's again a source of creating entrepreneurship. Now, we've talked about, what is entrepreneurship. We've talked about, multiple facets of entrepreneurship. We've talked about how we can do it. If somebody was to stand up, and if it was my class at, IIM Ahmedabad or Harvard or wherever, and somebody said, sir, this is all good, but I want to be an entrepreneur, what should I do? Give me points. Because this is what I've realized, that MBA students or managers or people who have a strong hunger in their stomach, who want to do things, they also want to know how to do it. It's good that it works, it's nice, and what you've said, we are largely okay with what I've been saying. Yeah? Largely in sync, largely you're in touch with me. Yeah, you're not dreaming, you're not dozing off somewhere, bahut bol chuka hai, ab chup ho jaye. No? Good. So I can still speak for some more time? Yeah? Thank you. Thank you. So let me say, it takes me back to my class with Professor Michael Porter. I had the good privilege of being his student, and I asked him, sir, as an MBA student, any MBAs here? Yeah, a couple. So, okay. So you all have heard about Michael Porter, right? And Michael Porter's 5 forces analysis, right? I asked him a simple question. I said, sir, when I look at it, and Michael, it doesn't answer my question, why is it 5 forces? Why is it not 3? Why is it not 7? Why is it not 6? Because I tried to categorize it, I tried to classify it, I tried to, discern it, and I come up with 7. And he said, it was a mixed class that Porter was taking. And he said, which course are you from? I said, I'm a master's student. He said, master's students cannot remember more than 5. So it has to be on the fingertips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Even if you can do with 5, you're doing a pretty good job, my son. And I said, okay, fair enough. We will live with 5. So I'm going to give you a formula, which is again a 5 forces Abhishek Mishra model of creating entrepreneurs there. Now, what is the first thing that you need to have if you want to be an entrepreneur? Can anybody say it? I've given you a process. I've given you answers. I've said that, what are the sources of entrepreneurship? And the beauty of my lecture so far is that if you substitute the word entrepreneurship with innovation, it will still stand exactly the same. Right? So these are all sources of innovation as well. Brilliant point. That was my first point. I can prove it. I'm not lying. I just was scribbling some points on this page that I got here. The first point is development of a compelling vision. You cannot be an entrepreneur, you cannot be successful without a sense of vision. You cannot be a leader. And believe you me, in this country that we have, that we call our motherland, hum sab log duniya mein kuch bhi kar sakte the. We are good enough and fit enough to be in any part of the world and make our space in amongst any people in the world. We have that capability, we have what it takes. But we have chosen to come back to our motherland and be here and spend our lives here and hopefully, graciously, one day die in this motherland. So, what I would like to see here is more leaders and less managers. And the way I differentiate the two, and that's a very personal differentiation. You could have lots of arguments. There are brilliant scholars who've written a lot on scholarship, on leadership. But the way I think about it is managers don't like emotions. They don't like softer issues. They don't like humane issues. They don't like, that's what I'm saying. Maybe they still have to deal with it. Maybe they still have to live with it. Maybe they still have to manage it. But they don't like. Leaders love those issues. And that's, to my mind, the first difference between a leader and a manager. And you could be the best manager on earth. We have seen multiple managers. I can give you tens and thousands of examples, right from Deutsche to Citi to, any company, Enron, to whatever company you want to name. I can give you examples. Volkswagen, very recently, we have seen some brilliant managers taking shoddy decisions. Very poor decisions. Because they were managers, not leaders. They were not concerned with how it is going to affect human life. They were not concerned with what it is going to do to the people who live in the society, to people who are my customers, to people who are giving me my daily bread and butter and the respect and the prestige and the corporate jets that I fly around in. So you have to be a visionary, that's the first point. You have to want to contribute to people, to change, to make their lives better. To help them grow, to help them do a process better, to be more cost effective, to be more effective, to be more productive. Has to come from within. There's absolutely no way. And if you have that vision, is that good enough? No. It's never good enough. There are, I would say, in every room that you can enter, there would be visionaries who are good for nothing. So the vision is not good enough. It is required. It's like the soil that can sustain a forest, that can sustain and grow minerals and jewels and diamonds and gold in its core. But it is not enough. The next thing that you really want to have is to have a passion for what you want to do. It must. I've had the very good privilege of working with, along with, and listening to, and also hear him in the class setting, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. He used to teach at IIM Ahmedabad, where I was teaching at IIM Ahmedabad for 3 years at a stretch. And then I had the good fortune, probably the only person in his career who was a faculty member along with him, and who also became a minister in waiting for him later when he came as an ex-president to Uttar Pradesh many times. I visited and, I was a minister in waiting for him many times. Now, one thing that he said, which is extremely relevant, and aap sabne padhi hai, कि स्वप्न वो नहीं, ख्वाब वो नहीं जो आपको सोने न दे, जो आपको सोते हुए आए, बल्कि वो है जो आपको सोने न दे. That is what I think I've not heard a better definition of passion in my life. That's why I borrowed his words today. I can give you many definitions of passion. I still, despite my busy schedule, I still try and make it a point to read every day at least for an hour at least, and maybe an hour and a half or two. So I can give you many definitions of passion. That's not important. But I think that is where we as a society, as Indians, we connect immediately because in our minds, the image of Professor, Doctor, President, Bharat Ratna, whatever name, scientist you want to call him, the missile man, is so live and so vibrant that we immediately connect to his words. So you need to have that passion. And once you have that passion as well, what is it that differentiates whether you will use that vision and passion on the right lines? Because the world has been full of examples, people who are visionaries and very passionate, but went down the wrong roads. They chose a wrong calling. They chose a wrong ideology. They chose a wrong, frame of mind. What you want to have is be a character, right? No, have a character. Don't be a character. Have a character. Now, what is character? What is character? Very broad term. Very easy words to throw at people from a dais. You stand up on the platform and you say, guys, have a character. Easy? Very easy. But if somebody stands up and says, yes, Professor Mishra, but what does it mean to have a character? How do you know whether I have a character? How do I know whether I have a character? Do you have a character, Abhishek? How do I know that yes, I do have one? And I've nurtured it very consciously and thoughtfully. Chosen it almost step by step, brick by brick. And to my mind, a character is a set of values that always proves as an anchor for your behavior, for your choice decisions. It's a value system, it's a moral judgment structure that you create for yourself, that you tell yourself that this is what I'm going to do and this is absolutely not what I'm going to do. Come what may. Kuch bhi ho jaye, main ye nahi karunga. That value system that guides your judgment, that guides your choices, that guides your behavior throughout your life is what will give you a character. That's my definition. You could have your own definition. And please have your own definition. Don't live with Abhishek Mishra's definition. Because is there some things that define me? Oh, yes and no. Some that I can share and some that I cannot share. But what defines me, for example, to my mind, immediate response is, I am sure that you will not find a moment in my life, in my career, where you will find Abhishek Mishra to be intellectually dishonest. I will not say what I am not. I will not lay a claim to something that I do not have, that I do not possess. And second thing is probably financial integrity. That is something that you will not find challenged ever for Abhishek Mishra so far, touch wood. So these two, and there are many more, and we can have a chat on that because, and honest chat, because I don't need to impress you, right? I'm already married, my wife is here. So, I can tell you very honestly on those grounds. So, what I was saying is, have that character. Have that character. Define it for yourself. And please, guys, ladies and gentlemen, please tell yourself, this is what I will do and this is what I will not do. And one thing I would like to say, especially to jo नौजवान हमारे हैं, कि जिंदगी में ना कहना बहुत जरूरी है. You must learn to say no. Yes मत बोलिए. Yes अपने आप होता रहता है, चलता रहता है, जिंदगी चलती रहती है. Doesn't matter. But you have to learn to say no. And if you have in it, within you, the ability, the power, the conviction enough, the strength to stand up to anybody, your chief minister, your prime minister, your boss, your CEO, your colleague, your friend, your girlfriend, your wife, whatever. If you have to look in, the ability to look into the eye and say, no, believe you me, you will find your own calling. You will find your destination. You will find your manzil in Hindi or Urdu, whatever you like it. Please learn to say no. I will not take this. I will not do this. Yes, by the process of exclusion, by a process of choice, comes automatically to you. What you will not do, remaining you can do. Right? Rather than leaving that, what most of the people normally do in life is they will say, yes, I will do this, yes, I will do that, yes, I will do that. But they don't tell their own mind, they don't tell their own selves that this is what I will not do. And that is something that you have to start believing in and start saying that no, come what may. Am I running my time? Yeah? Can I go on, or if you want I can finish here? Yeah? Okay. Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay. So, yeah, that's fine. I can wrap it up in 1 minute. I'm good at that. Yeah? Okay. Can I go on for 5 minutes, then I will take answer questions, right? Yes, that's right. That's right. So I was saying have a character and the next step, that will all be beautifully tied in when you have a holistic perspective. You need to bring it all together. If you want to play a role that is larger in life, that is beyond what ordinary and everyday people do, if you see that calling for yourself, if you see that role for yourself, if you want to be that leader, you have to have that holistic perspective in your character, ingrained. It's 1 point. Have a character that is holistic, brings a holistic perspective to the table. Very, very important point. If you can't bring it together, if you can't understand that the way it works together, that is, unless you can bring it totality, you will miss out elements. And when you miss out elements, they come back to haunt you. They do not let it, you cannot, never, ever run from your past. It will always, always, always catch up with you. Is it a scary thought? Yes. Do I want you to be scared? Please be. Yes, I really want you to be scared. Because my dad says, कि जो बच्चा इम्तिहान में फेल होने से डरता है वो कभी फेल नहीं होता. वो उसकी तैयारी कर लेता है, वो उसकी काट खोज लेता है, वो उसको पैदा कर लेता है कि मैं फेल ना होने पाऊं. And the last point to my mind, and I think that's what creates the magic, and that's the last ingredient in my recipe. I've completed 4 points, and I promise it will only be 5, right? So here's the 5th one, and that is the ability to reconcile seeming opposites. That is the ability of a leader. Somebody is type A, somebody is type B. They can't work together. They don't gel together. They don't work together. They can't create a team. They can't work as a board. But a leader is one whose ability to bring them still together, bring them on a table, and he has the ability to reconcile. That's the way I like to express it. He has the ability to reconcile seemingly irreconcilable opposites. Ability to reconcile seemingly irreconcilable opposites. He can still somehow work together. And you all know in your family, in your organizations, there's an uncle, there's a manager, there's a boss, there's a CEO, there's a friend, there's a girlfriend, or somebody. उसके पास जाएंगे तो वो सबको बैठा सकता है. उसके कहने पे हर आदमी आ जाएगा. वो सबको बुला सकता है. वो समझा लेगा. कोई चाचा, कोई भतीजा, कोई बुआ ऐसी होगी. बुआ is normally नहीं. Sorry, that was just on a lighter way. Yeah. Who can bring it together? And ladies and gentlemen, if you have these 5, at least to my mind, to my very limited, very humble, very small, very maybe opinionated existence so far of 35, 36, 37 years, I think it is what it takes to be a great leader, to be a great innovator, to be a great entrepreneur. Let me end by saying, I have a favorite quote of mine, and which I dedicate to this audience today. The philosophy, that's the philosophy part, which brings it all together, which backs it all, which makes it worth the while, which makes it sensible and sensical. एक शेर है बहुत खूबसूरत लिखा हुआ. Can I? Yeah? हम वक्त के सीने में एक शम्मा जला जाएं. हम जिस दौर में हमको जन्म मिला, हम जिस भी लाइफ के स्टेशन पे जी रहे हैं, कुछ ऐसा जरूर करें कि एक नई शम्मा रोशन हो. مجھ کو کسی نے ایک بار کہا, ہم لوگ دیا جلا کر کے اترے, شروع میں منسٹر بنا تھا, ہمارے یہاں ایک بہت سینئر آدمی ہے, انہوں نے کہا, میں نے کہا سر آئیے دیپ جلا دیں. بولے ابھیشیک دیپ کبھی جلتا نہیں ہے, دیپ روشن ہوتا ہے, دیپ پرجولیت ہوتا ہے. اور اس دن میں نے زندگی میں بہت بڑا انتر سیکھ لیا, جلتا نہیں ہے, پرجولیت ہوتا ہے. بہت بڑا انتر ہے یہ. اگر آپ یہ انتر سمجھ لو گے, سیکھ لو گے, اور روز سیکھنا پڑتا ہے, میں نے سیکھا ان سے. آپ اف یو کین ڈو دیٹ از دی آئیڈیا. ہم وقت کے سینے میں ایک شمع جلا جائیں اور سوئی ہوئی راہوں کے ذروں کو جگا جائیں, کچھ رنگ اڑا جائیں, کچھ رنگ جما جائیں, اس دشت کو ہم نغموں سے گلزار بنا جائیں. آخری ایک لائن اور ہے, اس دشت کو ہم نغموں سے گلزار بنا جائیں, اور جس سمت سے ہم گزریں, سمت کا مطلب ہوتا ہے راستہ, جس سمت سے ہم گزریں کچھ پھول کھلا جائیں, جس سمت سے ہم گزریں کچھ پھول کھلا. بہت بہت شکریہ, دھنیہ واد, جے ہند, جے سماج.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
For those very passionate thoughts that you shared with us. We'd like to thank our Honorable Minister of Vocational Education and Skill Development, Government of Uttar Pradesh, Professor Abhishek Mishra. Thank you very much, sir, for spending these moments with us. May I now request Mr. D.D. Prakash, sir, Managing Director and CEO, ABB Private Limited and Chairman Infocom, to kindly come forward and present a memento to Professor Abhishek Mishra.
Thank you. Yeah, idhar? Jahan aap aadesh karo.
It has been an absolute honor that we had in our midst today Honorable Minister of Vocational Education and Skill Development, Government of Uttar Pradesh, Professor Abhishek Mishra, for those very, very passionate words that he shared with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.